Previously on Legends of Aelos, we pick back up just as the party is returning to Balin's from their time at the tavern, a fair few stumbling their way into the homestead. Briar is still awake and inquires with the others as to how the evening went, and between the drunken mutterings from some, the heavier coin purse, and the purging of the stomach of a certain dwarf, she is able to determine the night was eventful, to say the least. Whilst the least functional and coherent of the party set off, or are put off, to bed, the remainder clean up the new mess on the floor before retiring themselves. The next morning, the evening prior having been slept away, a renewed party gather in the main room to determine an agenda for the early day, so that they can be prepared to head out on their journey towards Lake Grasp. First and foremost, breakfast. And where better a place than one more visit to Billy Bales to savor his home-cooked breakfast feast one more time before the group departs from Midcove. Welcomed with the usual enthusiasm, Billy produces another spectacular spread of pancakes, bacon, and all the fixings while the party discuss their itinerary. The evening at the bar produced fruitful enough that the group determines, without making themselves too destitute, that they can pay off the loan proper with the civil authorities, leaving the boat financially in the hands of the party and Balin's alone. After finishing their meal and bidding farewell to Bales, Balin and Bolt head with the party towards the general store. Upon arrival at the general store, which also happens to be its insipidly succinct name, Balin and Bolt bid a parting farewell to the group. Their not-so-brief adventures that they've had finally coming to a divergence, for now. With heartfelt gestures, the now two groups separate, Balin taking Bolt off to formally begin his trainings as a fledgling captain, while the five enter the store before them to gather last-minute traveling supplies before heading off to Martel's offices. After purchasing provisions and travel equipment, the group heads over to the town offices and meet with Martel. Collectively, the party is resourceful as well as frugal enough to resupply and manage the 20 gold necessary to pay off the loan, and the sooner the better, in their opinion. Martel finalizes the paperwork, and with the contract with the city offices fulfilled, the party now holds the deed proper to the ship, which Martel sends to Balin via the town's guard, along with warnings of the current state of the waters and trade routes surrounding Midcove. It certainly would put a damper on the training of our fledgling captain, and an experienced one as well, where they find themselves caught up in a maritime scuffle thanks to the tensions mounting between Ezwin and Zahab, on top of the ever-present threat of opportunistic pirates. The last of their affairs in town settled, the fated five finally depart Midcove, their first destination, Lowell, a town on the way towards Lake Grasp. There are several days of journey before they reach Lake Grasp, and there could be some work for a fresh group of heroes to perhaps make some coin by completing. The party leaves in the early mid-afternoon, so they will be a bit limited in distance they can travel before dusk, and the party certainly wants to have a few hours of setup before nightfall, considering that they forewent tents so as to afford paying off the loan. Fortunately, the first leg is uneventful, and the party is able to find a good spot to camp at before the first crossroads. Ace and Rowan go hunting to supplement the group's food stocks, while the remainder of the party set up camp. The hunters are successful in their quarry and bag a buck, which Rowan goes about preparing with some herbs gathered by Karun, as Asher sets about processing the hide of the animal. After the party rests for the evening, they set back on the trail, taking the eastern branch towards Lowell and Lake Grasp. On this length of the journey, the group comes across an Etten, heading towards the party on the opposite side of the road. The party recognizes the potential threat it could pose to travelers, but they are willing to give the creature the benefit of the doubt. As they draw closer, they can overhear the two heads arguing between each other about their name, until it notices and approaches them. It initially seems peaceful, simply inquiring as to in what order the five believe the Etten should address itself, a dilemma that one can only assume most Ettins might encounter, considering the intellectual level of the one before them. There's a bit of back and forth in attempts to determine the best way the creature could order its name to create the combined name, but all that falls to the wayside when the creature proposes a competition to determine the name, the side that smashes the most of the party's heads getting to pick it. Needless to say, this doesn't sit well with the adventurers, and combat ensues. It is good that it is the party, rather than common adventurers encountering this beast, and it is more than formidable in a fight, its size and strength permitting it to use its weapons to the absolute fullest. The party lays into the Etten, but it is resilient and doles out as much as it can back to the group, Rowan taking quite the brunt of the onslaught, especially considering him being the first of the party attacked. The creature wears down the group, and as the situation begins to look increasingly dire, Karun reaches out in desperation, and as he contacts the Etten's flesh, the necromantic energies leach from Karun's hand into the Etten, creating a festering wound as Karun recoils back from the spell's discharge. Beaten and weary, Rowan sees this as the now or never opportunity and plunges his weapons into the purple bruised hip of the Etten where Karun had ravaged the beast. The hit is true, and with this final attack the being is felled, its adventurer head-smashing days brought to an end. Battered, beaten, but victorious, the group sees what they can gather from the remains of their foe, some getting more visceral in their search than others. A few things looted for their endeavors, the party continues along their way until dusk begins to fall. They find a spot and set up camp again, though forgo hunting due to their food stocks brimming after last night's hunt and the scavenged meats from the Etten. It isn't long after they settle, though, that a peculiar sight approaches them. A seemingly half-elf gentleman approaches the five, apparently covered in dirt and grime, and obviously lacking in clothing. The group provides coverings and food to the individual as he indulges them in his story of betrayal, downfall, and current pursuit of vengeance. And it is from here we shall continue the story of the Legends of Aelos.